And Melvin, if you can, and Melvin and company, if you guys can come to the microphone and ask the questions. Surprise to me too, folks. We're going to find out how this is going to play right now.
Right.
Hello, my name is Brandon, and this is why the city bus is an important factor in my life.
Brandon, do me a favor. Everyone is about to speak. You literally need to be about an inch from that microphone and enunciate clearly, otherwise no one can hear you. All right, thank you.
My name is Brandon, and this is why the city bus is an important factor in my life. 10 years ago, I underwent an emergency brain surgery that caused me to develop epileptic seizures, resulting in my ability to drive. I relied heavily on the city bus to get to work, school, and run simple errands such as filling a prescription. The extended routes and times prior to 2018 allowed me to successfully complete my bachelor's. Without this bus system, I can say with confidence, I would not have gotten my degree. When the routes were changed to the current system, it put a heavy burden upon myself. What was once an hour trip to go to Walmart became a multi-hour adventure by foot. I used to never have to worry about how we get home to work because I knew the city bus would be coming by. I do not have that luxury anymore. The nearest bus stops are miles away on both ends.
Mr. Stapleton, are you? Mr. Stapleton, could you hold the microphone close to your mouth, please?
As I listened to this gentleman speak about the transit system, as an employee working there for almost 15 years, I can agree with him. I was very disappointed when the system changed, and I think it would be very important for the city to reevaluate the system so that it's more convenient for the riders. There's a lot of people that complain. I like the system that we reverted back from. I like the system before. So I agree with that. I think there needs to be something, needs to be reevaluated, and there needs to be a change made so that it covers more of the city as a whole. It's only covering a certain part of the city, and there's a lot of people being left out in that. There's one time there was an elderly lady that had to walk several miles to get to her house. That for many years, that the system covered that area. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Mr. Stapleton, could I ask you a clarification? So it maybe help us. The system that you liked was a system that transferred everyone at Wabash. Is that system?
No, I like the
Neighborhood routes.
Neighborhood routes.
Neighborhood routes. All right. I just wanted to make sure. I've been here quite some time, and if the rest of you have been here quite some time, when he's talking about bus changes, I'm like, okay, we do that about every 5 years. Thank you, Mr. Stapleton.
You're welcome.
My name is Ricky Ascani. I work for Local Motion as our community engagement director. And so as Columbia's transportation experts, Local Motion does a transportation and access survey every year. And in 2021, we had almost 1,000 respondents. Overwhelmingly, Columbians said that they would ride the bus as their form of transportation if there were more stops, more shelters, if it ran more frequently, and stopped more frequently. We know that a lack of a thriving bus system is a significant obstacle for Columbia when it comes to economic mobility, access to jobs, quality of life, and talent attraction and retention for businesses. In our survey, we also asked the question, are you able to participate as much as you would like in local government processes, like attending public meetings and voting? 70% of people who take the bus as their main form of transportation said no. This is a testament to how our current transit system functions and how it's holding us back from reaching our true potential as a modern and thriving city. And so hearing from these folks behind me and from what I've had to say, my questions to you are, what would need to change about our current bus system for you to ride the bus on a regular basis? What is your strategy to expand and protect our bus system and its workers and drivers so that we as a city, residents, workers, business owners, and even you as a local leader can realize the opportunities that a thriving bus system can offer? Thank you.
Did everyone catch that question?
I'm just going to talk about transit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Miss Buffalo.
Oh, no, he's got more.
Oh, we do have more
But
questions.
wait, there's more.
In speaking about the former system, I think there was not enough buses on the routes, and that was the major problem. I think it would have worked great, but they need to add it. They needed to add more. They need to keep the 4 primary routes running all day instead of taking them out of service for 4 hours. And I think that if we would have had more buses on the routes, it would have been a more practical way for people to get around. I just wanted to add that to the.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stapleton. Is anyone else in that group need to say anything else? All right. I'm assuming we're all on the same page now. Ms. Buffalo, could you start us off, please?
Yes, so thank you for that. And, okay, so for me, coming from working for the city and looking at how our city operates, transit has always been a key lightning rod as well as kind of motivator to get people coming out. And I have to say, Ricky, your statistic, about 70% of the people responding to that saying that they cannot be engaged in local government is heartbreaking. I mean, it's not alone. It's not even just transit. It's actually access to City Hall is another issue, but that's a different forum. When I think about our transit system and the issues that we have, there's multiple things that could be addressed that we could work on. So the first, having more coworkers for you. Transit right now, I think the last time I looked at the last vacancy rate is down 12 drivers, right? So the workforce issue is not alone to just transit. We're seeing it, I want to say for union representatives, you have like 69 empty or vacancies within the city of Columbia right now, the latest vacancy report. So it's not alone, but having more drivers does allow you to have more service for going out. Also, when we think about how we develop, so the role the city council has, right? We set the budget, so it's us saying how much should workers get paid. That's a big part of it. But the other thing is also thinking about how do we develop our town? So in order to support a robust transit system, we need to have more multifamily mixed-use housing. Like along major corridors, we need to think about how can we increase density so that more people, more offices, more things to do are there so that we have more riders. Because we know it's a whole combination of ridership, the funds, the people to do it, and also where they're going. And then when we talk about workforce and we talk about service, we used to go out. I used to ride on the route. You asked me, what would it take for me to ride? And it would be having, our original goal was to have a bus stop within half a mile of a person's house. So that, yeah, it might be a little bit, but you need to get there. And when we lost that, we lost our Route B connection to a lot of the plants, and then also getting the shift workers there. So I'd advocate for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buffalo. Ms. Heath.
Okay. So I would like to have a thorough conversation with the bus drivers and with the people who are riding the buses, because they're the ones that know the most about it. And I just feel the best ideas come from organically the people who are the users and the producers for it. The second thing I'd like to do is I would like to research successful cities that have 200,000 or more and see what they are currently doing to provide for their residents and their bus drivers. Third of all, I would like to brainstorm as a whole to come up with the best idea that works for our city. And part of that, I believe, is a two-prong approach where we have a frequent bus, for lack of a better term. We have a frequent bus, and those frequent buses go certain ways that a lot of the population uses all the time. And so those are heavily trafficked areas that people could go and use the bus, and that would be successful. And then we have the routes that go out to everyone, and we need to make those efficient and effective for the users who need it to get to work on time, who need it to get home on their shift, who need it when there's cold and rain outside, that they do not want to be in the bus shelters for an hour waiting for the bus. And I think that goes along with what would I do to ride a bus. When I grew up in Rothwell Heights, we had a neighbor that had 6 kids. And so the wife had the car in the 70s, and the husband rode the bus from Rothwell Heights every day up until the 80s. And I just think that it's quite possible for us to do that, but we have to have an efficient system. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heath. Mr. Minshew.
One idea that was shared with me was to take the bus system out of the purview of the current city department that runs the bus system and move it over to the economic development side, so that where people were needing to go to work would be more of the driver of where the bus route went. And so where are people coming from? Where are they going to? Seems to me, from your conversation, in the fact that we reroute the bus system every few years and try to rework it every few years, I would have to, if it was a team of people at the company I work for, I would have to say, I'm gonna let that team take a break from trying to figure that out, and we're gonna let somebody else do it. I think from the idea of having it with the economic development folks, we would find some subsidies to help pay the cost of the bus, because that's the other reason that we changed the routes, is because of the cost of it. So I think that's the avenue that I'd want to explore. Personally, I don't think I could use the bus system unless they let me put my toolbox on there, because I have the tools that we use for the work that we do. And so, but I do believe, we've got Swift meets going on Route B. And as far as I know, we don't have a bus to go out there to them. So we've got to solve some of these things from an economic development standpoint. And that's not to say that everybody here's whoever here rides the bus, I don't care about that. But in order to find the subsidies that we need to justify the cost of the bus and to have those routes in that might not be the most popular routes, I think that'd be the way to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelady.
I'm going to answer the second question first. What would it take for me to ride the bus? Keep that gas price going up. I'm ready to ride the bus. But to actually answer the question, in February, I actually got out and rode the bus. And it literally took me 45 minutes to walk to the stop, which is in Whitegate. On Whitegate was where I actually got on the bus. And then I rode around. It took me an hour plus, almost 2 hours to get from one side of town to the other side. And then I got off one bus in the middle of a route to transfer to another bus. I was just like, wow, this is way more complicated than when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, we all rode the bus to one central location, and we got a transfer, and we went out that way. I support that system. I think that we need to bring it back. Also, the bus system doesn't go past Gerbs, nor does it go past my job, nor does it go down Route B. So to me, it's inefficient. So I would say, how could we stop, look at the routes, figure out how can we get it not only to those places that's in Third Ward, but also let's look at First Ward and see where does the bus not go. Let's look at Fourth Ward, Fifth, Sixth. And I know that students are primarily, in between the students and the homeless people, those are the ones who are using the routes right now. We need to incentivize workers, incentivize the jobs so that we can get more bus workers. We need to figure out a way to buy more buses so that we can have more routes. And we need to make sure that it's effective so that we will want to ride the bus to get to those places that we need to go. The bus currently doesn't even go to the mall. So if I wanted to go to the mall, I have to drive my car, catch an Uber. So we need to think about those things when we're thinking about this robust bus system.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelady.
Well, this is another one of those difficult problems that we've been struggling with for many, many, many years, and we've had lots of changes. Some of the changes have been positive, some of the changes have been not so positive. Let me talk a little bit about some of the minor accomplishments, and then I'll get into some of the general solutions as I see them. Some of the minor accomplishments recently have to do with no fares, and that was because of some of the federal largesse that came down the pike. I think it's a great idea. We probably have bigger bus ridership because we have no fares than if we nominally charged a fare. We've increased the number of bus shelters. We don't have enough, but we've made great progress with bus shelters, and that was and it breaks my heart to see people just standing out there next to a sign, waiting for a bus to come by. Electric buses in terms of energy efficiency and so on, and the savings to the city to subsidize this, and smaller buses, which I've advocated for years, but we've never seemed to be able to get to that point. And some of the general solutions, I think, are we have to get the university on board. In one of the last administrations, the mayoral administration, it was totally bungled, and the university decided to pull out. We need the university's support to help support this bus system. We need the developers to help us with transit-oriented development. Ms. Buffalo was talking about some of the increased density and so on, but we need to make this a real priority in conjunction with the economic development. In terms of the transportation tax, the airport, we're talking about potential airport parking fees here, because the transportation tax goes towards roads, it goes towards the airport, and it goes towards the transportation system, the buses. It is high time that we're going to have to charge for some of the parking at the airport just to make this a fair issue when it comes to transportation. And finally, I think one of the goals, the overarching goals, is in fact to have a flex system of buses and to extend that flex system to weekends and past regular hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scala. Ms. Peppermint.
It's absolutely mandatory that a city like ours, I love Columbia a lot, oddly very geeky about Columbia, both my businesses are named after Columbia, and the fact that we don't have this solved yet is a mystery to me. And also, I will remember a conversation, we went to Fort Collins, Gainesville, it's one of the 7 cities I mentioned earlier that we visited. Gainesville has figured out their public transportation system. The way that they did it is they have added a fee per credit hour at the university, and for that fee, all staff and all students and all administration and faculty rode free anywhere in the city. In exchange for that, they had more stops than we have. Obviously, shelters are a problem. It's clear when it's cold that it's a problem, but in the heat of summer, it's also a problem. And I come at it from a workforce development standpoint. We absolutely have to get people to their jobs. So when we cut out things like where our manufacturing and our plants and the Route B, as many people have mentioned to that, it lets us keep face that we have a public transportation system, but we do not. We do not have one that works well for our public. And so when we can look at solutions that other cities have found that have worked, I feel that we can learn from that and pull some of those solutions in. The university should be a partner in that. We should continue to expand the footprint. If we can't offer those, then it is not doing those that need it the most are not able to use it. On any scorecard that you'll find of the best cities to live in our country, you're going to see on the card a robust public transportation system. So if we want to be one of those cities, if we want to continue to thrive and reach our potential, we absolutely have to figure this out. We have the best minds in this city. There's no reason why we can't pull them together and figure out a good solution.
Thank you, Ms. Peppermint. Mr. Foster.
I'm not absolutely positive of this, but I think that the very first song that my daughter and my 2 adult sons learned was, "The wheels on the bus go round and round." And if you've ever looked at one of those one of those children's books that uses that song, one of the things you'll see is that everybody is on the bus. And the reason that everyone is on the bus is because the bus goes where they want to go. Now, this is an equity issue. This is not simply a matter of being sure that we have the kind of transportation, the kind of transit that a city like ours should have because we should have it. We should have it because there are people who are unable to get where they need to go in other ways. It's mentioned that you can't get to the mall on the bus, but there are people in our community who can't get to work. They can't get to medical appointments. They can't get to the grocery store because they don't have transit to get there. So this is an equity issue. When I was at VAC, this was one of the things that we provided for people was bus passes so that they could go where they wanted to go. We heard a lot of conversation back about whether or not the bus system was what was needed, what was wanted, what was meeting their needs. And very often we heard that it was not, that it was complicated in the ways that people have described here. So what would it take for me to ride the bus? One of the things that I'm grateful for is that I live in a very walkable neighborhood. I can walk to downtown. I ride my bike in that same way, and I'm grateful for that. What would help me to ride the bus would be that there would be more of them, and they would run more often. It's really that simple, though the pathway to getting there is not so simple. I think that we do need to include the university in a process that's going and in a system that's going to work for us and is going to work for the city as a whole. But the first thing that needs to happen is we need to have a vision of what this would look like. I want to see a robust transit system in our city where there are buses that people want to ride, can ride, and take them where they want to go. And that when we have that and we get on the bus, each one of us, we're going to see that everybody else is there too.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Mr. Seaman, would you close us out, please?
Oh, where to begin? So, as a former logistics officer in the Marine Corps, every time I look at our bus system, I cringe. Because you can't ask people to go to services without giving them a way to get there. You asked the question, what would make me ride the bus? I rode the bus last Saturday with my 9 and 5-year-old daughters. We had to make the decision, do we walk an extra quarter mile up the road where there's a sidewalk on range line to get to a bus stop with no shelter? Or do I walk 200 yards down this way to a bus stop that I can see that doesn't have a sidewalk? I'm not having my daughters walk down range line without a sidewalk to get on the bus. So first, we need sidewalks on the side of the roads with those bus stops. The second part is, as we have new businesses come into town, we need to require that they pay to have a stop put in front of the building. Not on the other side of the street, in front of the building. If you can't get to the grocery store, if you can't get to the bank, if you can't get to your job on our bus system, then what do we have a bus system for? It's not getting you to where you're going. We're just wasting money. Randy made a great point. We consider the airport a potential job creator. So we have it under the Department of Economic Development. Our transit system is located under the department that fixes our potholes. That demonstrates our priorities. Bus system's not a priority for us. So yes, we do need to figure out our routes. We do need to move stops into areas where folks can actually utilize the bus system in a way that improves their lives, that gets them to a job, that gets that potential workforce we keep talking about developing to their jobs. If we're not doing that, then what's the point of having a bus?
Thank you very much, Mr. Seaman.